Snake encounters in residential gardens have increased measurably over the past decade. Wildlife biologists tracking suburban snake populations in states like Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas have documented a consistent pattern. Gardens are not random crossing points for snakes. They are destinations. Snakes move towards specific conditions, and modern gardens, despite every intention to the contrary, have become extraordinarily good at creating them. The problem is not the snake. The problem is the garden. Most homeowners, when they find a snake, focus entirely on removal. They call an exterminator. They pour chemical repellents around the perimeter. They buy ultrasonic devices that promise to drive snakes away through vibration. The pest control market in the United States alone pulls in over $3 billion a year in products aimed at reptile deterrence. Almost none of it addresses the actual reason the snake came. What draws a snake to a garden is not mystery. It is biology. And once you understand the 5 conditions that make your yard irresistible to them, the solution becomes surprisingly straightforward. The pest control industry generates over $40 billion a year globally. A meaningful portion of that revenue depends on a customer who does not understand the root cause of the problem, because a customer who eliminates root causes stops buying recurring treatments. Snake repellent sprays, granule perimeter products, electronic deterrent devices. There is no commercial incentive to tell you that 90% of snake activity in residential gardens is driven by habitat, food supply, and moisture. No profit margin in explaining that if you remove what attracts rodents, the snakes follow the rodents out. The entire financial architecture of pest control rests on the assumption that you will keep reaching for a product instead of addressing the conditions. This video is about the conditions. Nothing you need to buy, everything you need to understand. Snakes are not wandering. That is the first thing to understand. A snake moving through a residential area is not lost, not confused, not passing through on its way somewhere else. It is reading a landscape the same way an experienced forager reads a forest floor, looking for specific signals, responding to specific cues that have been refined over 100 million years of evolution. Dr. Emily Taylor, professor of biological sciences at California Polytechnic State University and one of the leading researchers on snake thermal ecology, has spent years documenting how snakes select microhabitats. Her work, published in the journal Copia, established something that most homeowners would find deeply uncomfortable. Snakes do not enter properties randomly. They enter because the property offers something adjacent properties do not. That something falls into 5 distinct categories. And most gardens, without realizing it, are offering all 5 simultaneously. The first category is thermal refuge. Snakes are ectotherms. They cannot generate their own body heat. Every choice they make about where to go, where to sleep, where to digest a meal, where to wait out a cold night, is a thermal calculation. A garden offers an astonishing variety of thermal environments compressed into a small space. Concrete paths that absorb and slowly release solar heat. Raised beds built from dark wood or stone that act as long, slow radiators. Compost piles that generate warmth through microbial fermentation. Piles that can run 10 to 20 degrees warmer than the surrounding air, even in October. A south-facing rock wall. A sheet of corrugated metal left leaning against a fence post. To a snake, your garden is not a garden. It is a thermal map. And if that map offers warmth when the surrounding landscape does not, the snake is not choosing your yard. Your yard is choosing the snake. The second category is structural complexity. Snakes need cover, not because they are hiding from you, though that is a convenient side effect, but because exposed snakes are vulnerable snakes. Hawks, foxes, raccoons, domestic cats, predators of snakes are everywhere in suburban landscapes. Dense plantings, wood piles, rock borders, decorative stepping stones set directly on the ground, the gap beneath a raised wooden deck. These are not just garden features. They are, to a snake, an unbroken chain of refuge points that makes movement through your yard safe and efficient. This is why the garden 2 doors down, with its manicured lawn, gravel paths, and minimal ground cover, sees fewer snakes. Not because it used a better product, because it offers fewer places to be invisible. Understanding why snakes choose gardens is the foundation. But the 5 specific conditions, the 5 doors, are where the practical work begins. Each one can be addressed. And each one, addressed properly, reduces snake presence significantly. The first door, leaf litter and debris accumulation. Dr. John Wilson, herpetologist at the University of Arkansas and co-author of multiple studies on snake microhabitat selection, has documented that leaf litter piles deeper than 4 inches create conditions that are, for snakes, nearly perfect. The insulation traps warmth. The decomposing material generates its own low heat. The structural complexity creates an interior labyrinth with dozens of routes and chambers. And critically, leaf litter is one of the primary habitats of the small mammals, amphibians, and invertebrates that snakes feed on. A leaf pile is not just a hiding spot. It is a hunting ground. The correction is not to eliminate dead leaves from your garden entirely. That would strip the soil of an important natural amendment. The correction is structure. Leaves composted in a managed bin, turned regularly, kept off the ground perimeter along fence lines. That serves your soil without serving your unwanted guests. Leaves left in loose, undisturbed piles against walls and fences for months at a time. That is an open invitation. The second door, standing water. Snakes drink. They also thermoregulate through moisture, maintaining skin hydration in dry conditions. A garden with consistent standing water sources, bird baths left stagnant, low spots where irrigation pools, decorative ponds without adequate circulation, is a water source that snakes return to reliably. More critically, standing water breeds the insects that attract the frogs and toads that attract the snake species most commonly found in residential gardens. The chain is direct: stagnant water, amphibian population, snake population. Fix the water, and 3 links in that chain weaken simultaneously. The third door, rodent habitat. This is the one the pest control industry least wants you to think about, because fixing it requires no product at all. The majority of snake species that enter residential gardens, king snakes, rat snakes, garter snakes, corn snakes, are feeding primarily on small rodents. Mice and voles that live in compost bins with loose lids. Rats that move through gaps beneath sheds and outbuildings. Field mice that overwinter inside stored bags of potting mix or birdseed left in the garage. Remove the rodent habitat, and you remove the primary food source. Snakes, like all predators, do not patrol areas where prey is absent. They move on. It is not complicated, but it requires fixing structural problems, sealed storage containers, repaired gaps in outbuildings, managed compost, rather than purchasing a perimeter spray. The fourth door, dense low ground cover along fence lines. The perimeter of your garden is a corridor. Snakes move along edges. This behavior, called edge affinity, is documented across dozens of species and is driven by the combined benefits of cover overhead and open sight lines for prey detection. A fence line planted densely with low ground cover, ornamental grasses, or trailing perennials creates an ideal corridor, sheltered above, visible laterally, running the full length of the property boundary. Maintaining a clear, mowed strip of 12 to 18 inches along fence lines disrupts this corridor without eliminating any planting. It is a single habit that reduces transit dramatically. The fifth door, rock and wood features placed directly on soil. Flagstone paths, decorative boulder clusters, wood rounds used as stepping stones, timber-edged beds. All of these, when placed directly on soil, create a gap between warm surface material and cool earth below. That gap is precisely the size a snake requires for shelter. Not to nest in permanently. Snakes are not building homes, but to rest enduring digestion, to shelter enduring temperature extremes, to use as a base for hunting the invertebrates living in the soil directly beneath. Elevating features slightly, ensuring airflow beneath pavers, placing landscape fabric under rock features, disrupts this without changing the aesthetic of the garden at all. The 5 conditions described above do not all require equal effort. Some can be addressed in an afternoon. Some require a shift in seasonal habit. What follows is a practical, season-by-season approach to reducing snake habitat systematically, without chemicals, without traps, and without the recurring cost of pest control contracts. Spring, the critical window. Spring is when snakes emerge from winter dormancy and begin establishing home ranges. This is the moment when the conditions in your garden either attract or repel them before a pattern is set. The single most effective spring action is a full perimeter audit. Walk the boundary of your property looking for every gap beneath fencing, every debris pile, every area where leaf litter has accumulated over winter. Clear it now, before warm soil temperatures make it attractive. Spring is also when rodent populations begin expanding after winter. Inspect all stored materials, seed bags, potting mix, fertilizer, for signs of mouse activity. A gnawed corner on a bag of bird seed is not a minor inconvenience. It is confirmation that you have a food chain operating in your storage area that will eventually attract its apex predator. Summer, managing moisture and structure. Summer irrigation is when standing water problems peak. Walk your garden 48 hours after a significant rain or heavy irrigation cycle. Any area still holding visible water needs either grade correction or improved drainage. Bird baths should be emptied and refilled every 3 to 4 days. This also breaks the mosquito breeding cycle, which creates a secondary benefit. Dense summer growth along fence lines should be cut back to the 12-inch clearance zone in late June, before peak snake activity. This is not a one-time cut. It requires revisiting every 4 to 6 weeks through August. Fall, the most neglected window. Most snake encounters happen in fall because most gardens are at their most attractive in fall. Leaf litter is at its peak. Compost piles are at maximum volume from the growing season, and snakes are feeding intensively before winter dormancy. This is the season when the garden feels most abandoned, and when the habits built through spring and summer either hold or collapse. The single highest impact fall action is leaf litter management. Not elimination, management. Leaves going into a structured compost system, regularly turned, with a solid base and a manageable footprint. Leaves not sitting in loose piles against walls, fence lines, or the base of raised beds for weeks at a time. Winter, structural repairs. Winter is the time for the structural work that summer busyness prevents. Gaps in outbuildings sealed. Wood piles restructured, elevated off the ground on pallets if possible, moved away from the house perimeter. Rock and paver features reset with proper airflow. These repairs, made in the dormant season, change the conditions that greet emerging snakes in spring. Here is what the pest control industry's framing of this conversation consistently leaves out. Not all snakes in your garden are problems. Some of them are, by any measurable standard, the best pest control your garden will ever have. And they are working for free. The eastern king snake, Lamprepeltis getula, is immune to the venom of pit vipers and actively hunts copperheads and rattlesnakes. A property with a resident king snake is a property where venomous species are actively suppressed, not by chemicals, not by traps, but by a predator that has been doing this work for millions of years. Wildlife biologists in the southeastern United States have documented for decades that copperhead encounters drop sharply in areas where king snake populations are healthy. The black rat snake, Pantherophis obsoletus, one of the most commonly encountered snakes in eastern American gardens, feeds primarily on mice and rats. A single adult rat snake will consume between 50 and 80 rodents per year. That is 50 to 80 fewer rodents tunneling through your raised beds, contaminating your stored seed, gnawing through irrigation lines, and attracting the venomous species that actually pose a risk. Dr. David Steen, wildlife biologist and author of research published in the journal Herpetological Conservation and Biology, has documented that fear-based killing of non-venomous snakes actively destabilizes the ecological balance in residential areas, leading, paradoxically, to increased rodent populations and, in some cases, increased encounters with the venomous species that non-venomous snakes would otherwise suppress. The goal of this video has never been a snake-free garden. The goal is a garden that does not unintentionally attract snakes that do not belong, while remaining a place where the snakes that are genuinely useful feel no particular pull to stay either, because the rodent population they depend on has been addressed. When you close the 5 doors, the beneficial snakes that were hunting your mice find fewer mice to hunt. They move on. The occasional venomous species that followed the rodent trail finds no trail to follow. This is not a war on snakes. It is an ecology managed thoughtfully. The most common mistake people make after learning about snake-attracting conditions is doing everything at once, in the wrong order. They clear the leaf litter first, which is correct, but they pile the cleared leaves directly against the compost bin, which immediately creates a new debris habitat within feet of the old one. They seal the gap beneath the shed, which is correct, but they do not check whether something is already living in the shed before sealing it, which can trap a snake inside a structure rather than excluding it. The order matters enormously. Begin with the food chain, not the habitat. Address rodent access first. Sealed containers, repaired storage gaps, managed compost. This removes the primary reason snakes are present before you alter the landscape. A snake that has lost its food source will leave on its own timeline. A snake whose habitat has been cleared but whose food supply is intact will simply find a new hiding spot within the same yard. The second sequencing error is removing ground cover and debris mid-season without understanding what has already taken up residence. In late spring and early summer, leaf piles and dense low ground cover may contain nesting birds, overwintering beneficial insects, and the natural debris layer that protects soil moisture. Aggressive clearing in the wrong season removes allies alongside the conditions you are trying to correct. The right sequence. Audit in late winter before anything is active. Address rodent habitat in early spring. Manage ground cover and moisture through summer. Execute fall leaf management before accumulated volume creates peak attraction. That single shift in sequence. Food chain first, habitat second, maintained seasonally rather than reactively, is the difference between a garden that gradually becomes less attractive to snakes and a garden where the same conditions rebuild themselves every year regardless of what you do in October. What this conversation has really been about is not snakes. It has been about the difference between reacting to a symptom and understanding a system. The snake beneath the raised bed was never the problem. It was the last link in a chain: thermal refuge, structural cover, standing water, rodent habitat, debris accumulation, each link quietly, invisibly built by habits that felt completely ordinary. The pest control industry needs you to see the snake as the problem. A problem that requires a product, a service, a recurring annual contract. Because the moment you understand that the snake is a response to conditions you control, you stop needing them. What ties all of this together is something older than any product and more reliable than any chemical perimeter spray: the logic of ecology. Every creature in a garden, the snake, the mouse, the hawk overhead, the earthworm beneath your feet, is responding to conditions. Nothing is there by accident. Nothing leaves without reason. When the conditions change, the inhabitants change with them. Gardeners who understand this do not chase problems from one corner of the yard to another. They adjust conditions. They think in systems rather than incidents. They look at a snake and ask not, "How do I remove this?" but, "What did I build that made this feel like home?" That question, asked honestly, leads to a garden that belongs to you again. Not because you won a battle, but because you understood the invitation and quietly, deliberately, took it back. If this changed the way you think about what is actually living in your garden, and why, leave a comment below. I would love to know, which of the 5 doors do you think is the biggest issue in your own yard? Share this with a fellow gardener who has had an unexpected snake encounter this season and is not sure what to do about it. And if you want more of this kind of deep dive into what is really happening beneath the surface of your garden, subscribe. We are just getting started. Until next time, keep your hands in the dirt and your eyes on the whole picture.